Been a bit busy with work, real work, the last week or so, and a bit under the weather like everybody is in January, so I haven't got an awful lot of real engineering done, only some wallet engineering. I've been buying parts for the EVGT, but they'll probably find their way onto the Z300 first, because packaging these up in the way I want to will make the motor swap on the first EV faster, because I'm going to be reorganizing everything under the engine bay when I do that. So I hope that will become clear as I go through this short video, just introducing these parts. One for the steering and one for the braking of the car. And let's start with the braking over here. So this is a Hella UP28 pump, and they're used on lots of cars. Why do you need one in an EV? Because you don't have the vacuum that comes from the air rushing in to the motor, which is what powers your brake booster, your brake servo. And so you need an electrical source of a vacuum. These, as I say, are very common. They're in lots of Volkswagens and Renaults and various other cars. And you can pick them up pretty cheap on eBay. And they're typically about 50 quid for a newish one. Well, 50 quid for maybe 35 quid for a clone from China, but obviously you've got to pay shipping and import tax on that, so they get up into the 40s. You can pick up a second-hand one, fairly knackered looking, for maybe a bit less than I paid for this one. I paid 30 quid for this shipped. It's brand new. From the parts bin. What I didn't realise is the reason it was being sold is because the casting had cracked, and the barb that you connect the hose to for the vacuum had come off. But no big issue. That was on the photos of the eBay listing. It wasn't actually in the description, and I just didn't pick it up. I just saw a good price and went for it. But no matter, I just drilled out the broken bit of casting and screwed in this barb, which I think is maybe an 8mm barb. Pretty sure that's the size of hose I've got on there anyway. It's just happened to be what I had lying around. It's quite a soft casting, so I could just thread this straight in. Maybe a bit of a leak, but if there is, I'll go back with some RTV or some PTFE tape. But I tested it and it seems pretty solid. I couldn't hear any leaks coming out, so quite pleased with that as a sort of 10-minute fix. Comes with a simple electrical connector. It's just power and ground. It did have a larger one on there, and let's see if I can find it here. And I've, looking at this, comparing these side by side, I realise I may need to upgrade this connector at some point, because it's not possibly capable of carrying the current required. This one's clearly much meatier, a lot more surface area on these connections than this one. So I'll have to look into that and maybe replace that connector again. Not the end of the world. I've got stacks of these. They're very, very cheap from AliExpress. I bought a big box a while back of different sizes. So electrical connection is very, very simple. It'll be controlled by a simple pressure switch, which will sit on the this connects to a reservoir via a check valve. And then on the other end of the reservoir, we'll have a pressure switch. When the vacuum drops below a certain level, then it just a simple 12-volt switch, which will trigger a relay, which will turn this back on and re-empty, if you like, the reservoir. It's not really a reservoir, is it? Because it's not storing. It's an accumulator. It will re-empty the accumulator of air, and then we've got plenty of power to drive our brake booster. It means we don't have to change the actual brake booster itself. You can go for an electrical one, something like an iBooster from a Tesla, but that's sort of in the £200-300 mark. And it also makes approval more complicated and insurance more complicated, because you're changing more core parts of the car, whereas with this you're keeping core parts of the car exactly the same. Don't really know what this does. It just sits on the outlet pipe. Obviously air comes in here, goes out there. Some sort of, I don't know really, I haven't tried. You can blow through it and you can suck through it, so I don't really know what the point of that is. To stop moisture getting in? I don't know. Put it in the comments if you know why that's there. Either way, it's not particularly important. Maybe just minimises noise. So that's the vacuum pump. 30 quid, as I say. The problem with this is it's quite noisy. These are, between this and the power steering pump, these are the noisiest parts of the car. When I've talked through the power steering pump, I'll talk about what I'm going to do about that on my next build. So moving on, we have power steering pump. See if I can fit all of this in the video, in the shot. This is from a company called TRW, albeit it's branded Ford Motor Company. Typically people use these from a Vauxhall Zafira. This one's from a Ford Focus, a 2009 Ford Focus diesel, which means that using it's going to be slightly more complicated, because I don't think anyone else that I've seen is doing that yet, but hoping it's not too complicated. On the Zafira, you just have your main power connections, these dirty great wires, and then you have an enable line, which basically turns it on, and then a start line, which spins it up. And you put your enable line on your ignition, your start line onto your run circuit, and it spins up and gives you power steering. And mine works very well in my Z3 as it is. Again, noisy, so you need to do whatever you can to minimize that and minimize its run time if you can. You don't want it running unnecessarily, because obviously it consumes an awful lot of juice as well. Why might this be more complicated than the Zafira one? Because the Zafira one has just those 2 electrical connections beyond main power, and this one has slightly more. It has CAN bus, it has what I hope is an enable line, a 12-volt enable line. Obviously you've got your main power, and then it has connections to the steering angle sensor as well. Now my hope is that if you disconnect these and you don't send anything via CAN bus, then just turning on the enable line is enough to get this thing going. A sort of limp mode, if you like. That if everything else has gone wrong in the car, it still gives you power steering. That probably won't give me any sort of speed control or sort of variability in terms of the amount of noise it makes, but that'd be a good start. And then maybe I can tail into these CAN bus lines, find some signals, somebody who's done some reverse engineering, or do some myself, and gain control of the motor speed, so that it's as quiet as it can be. Other than that, relatively straightforward. You top it up with ATF, but only once you've made up these connections here. You have your high pressure line, which goes down to the pressure inlet on your power steering pump. I'll have some connections made up. I used Hydraulic Superstore last time, really, really good, very, very sensibly priced. I'll probably get a banjo bolt made up for this, and high pressure hose, which will come out the bottom to keep things neat and tidy. Likewise, this return line, you can just use simple oil line for that. Again, hooks up to a banjo bolt on the power steering rack on the Z3. I'm just keeping that, again, completely standard to minimize the problems with your conversion. Mounting wise, you've got these 3 tabs here, which is slightly different to the Zafira. The Zafira has angled rubber boots, which are part of the body. This is a bit more flexible in my eyes. What I'll probably do is have this mounted alongside the electric motor, and use these tabs, if you can see those, use these tabs to hold it sort of flat against the electric motor. Again, I'll put some rubber bushings in to limit the transmission of vibration into the frame and the body. And then I'll need something that comes round and picks up on this tab here. So you've got the 3 mounting points to keep it secure. And as I say, some sort of rubber bushing, some sort of rubber vibration absorption. And again, the same is true of this. The UP28, the vacuum pump, comes with its own rubber bushings. I'll probably pick up from the top of these, come down through with some bolts through to the other side, or vice versa. I may sit it on some little tabs like that. And I'd like to put these side by side and ideally box them in, so that I can put some sound deadening, some soundproofing around them, and minimize the noise, because these really are the noisiest bits of my current conversion. This one obviously a bit shallower, so not too much of an issue with this coming out. As it does, we can go round through a 90-degree angle and come out the bottom if needs be, albeit actually, given thinking about the layout of my engine bay, they'll probably sit in that orientation, and this connection will come out the top and straight into the straight towards the vacuum pump. Or actually I could sit this up here and put my valve and check valve, my sensor and my accumulator down here to keep it all nice and tidy, or vice versa, put it up here. But maybe put all of that in a box, keep it all nicely insulated, and minimize the noise, and then maybe have to add some noise actually to the car so I don't run over sort of unwary pedestrians who step out not hearing the thing, because it is otherwise very, very quiet. Lots of cleanup to do on this piece. I didn't do much cleanup on the last power steering pump, and I left it pretty messy. I'd quite like to get this one into good shape, looking nice. Maybe take it, semi-dismantle it. I don't want to take this spring clip off here, or not spring clip, I don't want to take this band off here and have to redo it. Instead, I'll probably just mask that off, run some fluid around in here to clean it up, and maybe spray this bottom piece, or run a bit of sandpaper or wire wheel or something over it so it's nice and tidy and clean before it goes into the car. And that's that. Very short video, just introducing some new parts, the latest fruits of my wallet engineering. They're not the last bits of my wallet engineering. I confess I've been a little bit spendy over the last week or so, but I shall introduce some more parts, possibly in another video from here if I get bored in between bits of work this week, or in the next video from the workshop, which will be sometime week commencing the, let me get my dates right, week of the 7th, so probably back end of the week of the 7th. I'm hoping to spend a couple of days in the garage during that time, and hopefully make some good progress on the EV GT, and maybe some progress on the Z300 there as well. Thanks for watching.